Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Now, before we get into the meat of what that artwork in the thumbnail is, I have a few announcements to make. So the first one being that I will be at ChillCon this year demonstrating Trench Crusade. So if you have been looking at the lore for the game and you'd like to learn a little bit more about how the game plays, come over to my table and I've set up a fun little scenario where you can learn the rules. I'll also be joined by two other people on my table, and the first one being Ryvan Kradoff. He's a Mandalorian cosplayer, a very, very nice guy. Please come and meet him. Please come and talk about cosplay with him. He has loved Mandalorian. He's loved Star Wars. He's loved anything cosplay for years. We've been to multiple conventions together, me and him, and it would be incredible if you guys could come over, say hello, and meet him, because I think that he really deserves a spotlight on his frankly incredible work. I'll link him in the description below to his Instagram. Go and check him out. Go and give him some love because he really deserves it. The second one being Sons of Vresh. Now, some of you may have seen Sons of Vresh before on Instagram. He is a miniature painter like myself. He's also hosted many painting competitions. The Paint It competitions are his with another Instagram painter, Symbiotes. And this year, we may be collaborating on a couple of charity projects. Now, some of you may know we've done that in the past with the Space Ducks and the Deaf Leopards, and we've raised quite a lot of money. I believe that it sits at about over £3,000 now over the last maybe 2.5 years for the Space Ducks and the Deaf Leopards, contributing to mental health charities such as Mind. Mental health charities are a massively important thing in this hobby. As many of you are aware, there are many people in the hobby and outside of the hobby that struggle with the mental health. And, miniature painting has been an incredibly important aspect for a lot of people in how they deal with their anxieties and things like that, myself included. But I won't go into too much of my own personal life in videos. I don't think that is too important. But what else will we be doing? So, upcoming, I have been sculpting in secret, to be honest, far before this YouTube channel ever was even an idea, some Chaos Knights. Now, the Chaos Knights in question are some of, hopefully, the weirdest creations that you've ever seen, and I have a sneak peek of one here. This guy, he's obviously unfinished. I am sculpting, well, everything you see on here that isn't a Games Workshop miniature has been sculpted by me, except the teeth. But don't ask about the teeth, because I won't tell you about the teeth. That sounds ominous, and it's meant to, because the few people that will get that in joke, that's for them. But also, yeah, no one knows where the teeth came from but me. Anyway, so moving on to what we'll be doing with that. Now, I'm sculpting them, as I said, and I have a couple of Instagram painters. Some of them you will know, and some of them I will be announcing shortly. And yeah, they will be collaborating with me. It will be going live later this year. Hopefully, we raise a lot of money for mental health charities, or it could be the British Heart Foundation, or St. Luke's Hospice, or there are a number of charities we're batting around at the moment. But anyway, look out for that. It will be announced upcoming. And if you are interested in me doing some live streams of me sculpting these Chaos Knights, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, moving on now to the artwork in the thumbnail. I'm sorry for rambling so long on all that stuff. Let's get into the meat of the matter. So, this is the Primus Est Apostolis, and it looks horrific. So, what is the Primus Est Apostolis? Well, in my conversation with Tuomas that I had on the podcast episode 1, going out tomorrow, he had this to say. We spoke about the Primus Est Apostolis, which is just a huge floating, looks like a demon thing, and Mike mentions it's the first apostle. It's screaming first heads and things like that. And that got me thinking about, could that be and you probably haven't gone into this much depth on the Paladin lore yet, but I was thinking, could that be the traitor Paladin? And if it's the first apostle, is it hinting it's Mary Magdalene? If it is the traitor Paladin, does that mean that the Paladins are the apostles? And, then that opens up this whole can of worms of, well, I imagine that every communion that is taken from the level of the divine, so, for example, the Metachrist take communion from Christ and they become the Metachrist, Paladins take communion from them, become the Paladins, and then the communicants are a lesser version of the Paladins because the Metachrist have been doing so much communion over the hundreds of years, they're ruined now and it has to be mixed in and with chemical enhancements, which is why they are such a lower power level. So that Primus Est Apostolis artwork got me thinking so many different wild theories. And I'd just like to know if there's anything we can touch on with that at the moment. Again, you don't need to indulge all the crazy ideas I have, but yeah, if there anything you can give us to that.
The artwork in question is older, and we are right now talking how exactly it fits in our lore. But it isn't it isn't tied to paladins. I don't think it's the fallen paladin. We've actually had quite a fun. It's the doing brainstorming, but we haven't finished that line of thought. But yes, the artwork is part of the Trench Crusade universe. How it is tied exactly, that is still kept under wraps.
Pretty interesting stuff. So we know then that the Primus Est Apostolis, while it is an old work of Mike Francina's, it is part of the Trench Crusade universe. So let's go into a couple of theories as to what that might be. So first off, we can see that the Primus Est Apostolis is a woman. It's Primus Est Apostolis. It's clearly hell aligned. Primus Est Apostolis means the first apostle. Could that be a hint that this is a traitorous apostle, one of the followers of Jesus that has now turned to the forces of hell? The immediate woman that springs to mind when I think the first apostle of Jesus is Mary Magdalene. So if that is Mary Magdalene, it's incredibly interesting to theorize on how hell could have turned the literal first apostle of Jesus over to hell's forces and how it got to that stage, because that is horrific. So what does it do? Well, we don't know, but there's a little bit of lore fluff that we've got on it says that it screaming explodes heads, which doesn't sound pleasant at all. It sounds like a major weapon for Hell's forces, and it looks like a major weapon for Hell's forces as well. But what else could it be? So we know there is a traitor paladin, and again, myself and Tuomas touch on the traitor paladins a little bit in the podcast tomorrow, so again, make sure you don't miss that. But if it's a traitor paladin, and its name is the Primus Est Apostolis, could that be a hint for us that all along the paladins are in fact the apostles? Now, I didn't think that was the case at first. I thought that they might be the first people to receive communion from Christ, so therefore they become the Metachrists. And it's this ascending order of divinity, much like the ascending order of hell. So my theory is that wherever you receive your communion from, whichever layer of the divine, you become the lower rung of that ladder. So, for example, the Metachrists, whoever they are, would have received communion directly from Jesus. They become the Metachrists, and then the Paladins receive communion from them. Now, we know in a lore snippet that the Metachrists are being ruined. They are not in a good way. You know, there's one that is giving communion to what I assume will become a communicant, and it can barely speak, it's grunting, it's having to have a translator tell this person who's about to receive the communion what to do and interpret the words of the Metachrist. So potentially then, paladins were created. The reason why they can't make any more paladins could be that the Metacrists are so physically degraded that now they're having to take only the smallest amounts of Metachrist materials, so Metacry's blood and flesh, and then mixing it in with things like powerful chemical enhancements, and that makes the communicants superhuman, as we can see in the lore, but it doesn't elevate them to that paladin level. And I feel like there's an incredible danger around making the paladins. We know that the Mendelist Order hasn't been able to make them for 300 years, so that's, a possible route there. So, if this is the traitor paladin, that hints then that the paladins are the apostles. I don't think it's the traitor paladin, and again, you'll find out a little bit more about why I don't think that's the case in tomorrow's podcast video. But yeah, I'm really excited to find out the lore of the Primus Est Apostolis. We know it's now in Trench Crusade, so we know it's an upcoming thing, and we know that we can delve into theory land and see what'll be happening there. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think the Primus Est Apostolis could be? Because honestly, I'm intrigued. I really am. It looks a bit Path of the Beast like. But these sort of people that you can see in the procession, they don't look beast-like. So possible sub-faction for court, possible unknown entity. Maybe that is the Dragon of the Levant. Maybe it floats around bursting people's heads open. No matter what side you're on, it doesn't really fight for hell. It doesn't really fight for heaven. It's this warped, unknown entity that just floats around causing destruction. And maybe it's the sort of polar opposite to the Angel of Mercy. The Angel of Mercy goes around dishing out, the final mercy to wounded soldiers. Maybe the Primus Est Apostolis is the counter to that and the doom of the setting, whereas the Angel of Mercy is, a little bit of the hope of the setting. So let me know in the comments below what you think. And also, if you would like to check out my thoughts and speculations ahead of tomorrow's podcast to see how wrong I am about my theories, check out the video link to your left, where you can check out all my theories and thoughts for upcoming factions and upcoming rules and units for the game. But if you'd like to just check out a little bit of the lore, click the video link to your right and let YouTube recommend you your next watch. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all soon.